Good evening. I'd like to call the Finance Subcommittee meeting to order for Tuesday, April 28th, 2020, it being 6 p.m. Before we get into the agenda, I have to read the following. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency, on March 12th, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20. Pursuant to the order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from the open meeting law's requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberation through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, Brockton Public Schools website, which is as follows: www.bpsma.org, YouTube, and Comcast Channel 12. The public can access this meeting via this link, which is www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. I will need to take a roll call vote to open up the meeting relative to the open meeting law. The chair votes yes. Vice Chair D'Agostino.
Yes.
Ms. Azak.
Yes.
Ms. Mendez. Mr. Menoncello. Mr. Rodriguez. Mrs. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
We can move forward on this. We have enough votes, and Superintendent Thomas, a non-voting member, is on. Mike, good evening. I do want to, first of all, as Mr. Sullivan had indicated, I have my flag. I'd like to open up the meeting by the Pledge of Allegiance again. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America,
to the
republic
for which
which
it
it
stands,
stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
for all.
I hear Mr. Sullivan. Good evening, Judy. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you. I had it on mute again.
Yeah, no worries. I do want to share with the school committee and the superintendent and everybody on the school side the sad news. Loss of life in Brockton continues to increase. Most recent numbers: 141 residents have passed away because of COVID-19, the coronavirus. And our thoughts and prayers go out to the departed and, of course, their surviving loved ones and families. Current active cases in the city of Brockton, meaning Brockton residents that have positive confirmed cases, 2,164 Brocktonians are dealing with COVID at this time. Total cases in the city that have happened since calculations started was 2,668. So just on the total numbers versus current numbers, we can see a significant amount of people have recovered, and unfortunately, a huge percentage have passed away. But I wanted to provide each and every one of you an update on that. With that being said, we can go into the agenda. I don't know if the vice chairman wants to run the meeting tonight. I know he has all the paperwork as well, but the agenda is 5 items. And the first one, Mr. D'Agostino, in his fiscal year 2020 budget update.
Yeah, there are, as the mayor said, 5 items on the agenda for the evening: the 2020 budget update, followed by the 2021 budget update, transportation vendor discussion, and special ed out of district placement, and then new business. So I think we'll turn the agenda over to the superintendent. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. D'Agostino. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to have Aldo jump in and give us an update on where we stand currently with the FY20 budget. As you know, this is very important because as the school committee has directed us, and we took the initiative to make sure we're doing everything we can to save as much as we can in this budget, obviously hoping we're going to be allowed to carry it over into next year. As we know, right this time could be a very shaky budget, and it's very uncertain what that budget's going to be. We don't have a budget anymore for 2021. As we all know, the governor's budget that was put out in January is now gone, and we are awaiting a new one. So I want Aldo just to let us know currently where we stand with FY20. As you know, we're trying to do everything we can to save every dime before moving on to planning for next year. So go ahead, Aldo.
Correct. I look at our budget in two pieces. There's personal services, which is all the salaries, and then ordinary maintenance, which is all the goods and supplies. I've gone through all of our salary accounts and the fact that the Department of Ed has been pushing us to keep paying all employees, you know, full-time, part-time, everyone. That budget will be pretty much expended by the end of the year. But the ordinary maintenance budget might have some pretty good money in it. Again, we've a third of the year that we haven't had to, you know, really heat the buildings that much. We haven't that much electricity being used. Supplies for maintenance, you know, toilet paper, paper towels, water. We pay a water fee to the city. So right now I've got Mike Bandis going through every one of those line items and calculating out what we need for the next 2.5 months to figure out exactly what's left over, so I can carve that out. And somehow I'm working on the accounting of it, save it for next year, put it towards the next year. But there's a chance the Department of Ed may allow us to carry those funds forward. If not, I'll have to look at the city and maybe take it and put it into stabilization and pull it back out, depending on how the accounting rules work. And then the same thing with the non-net piece of the budget, which is the buses. We are not, right now, we haven't paid any transportation beyond March 12th. And we're looking to see how much of that we can actually put away for next year. And at the same time, we want to look at purchasing some buses with that money so that we'll have some of our own buses in place. So the hope's just to put a decent amount, but right now, every effort is to look at saving positions for next year, not, being able to avert a layoff. So at the same time, Chris Correa does all the grant accounting and all the accounting behind the scenes. He's looking at every single grant, looking to spend every grant, every penny we can, and leave funds available in the local budget by charging everything off to every possible grant that we can that's allowable. So he's been going through every one of those, before, because again, if you don't spend all the grant money, you have to send that back to the state. But if we can charge off every possible expense to the grant, that the state's fine with it, they'll allow us. So those are the moves that we're making and trying to put ourselves in a position where we have some funding rolling forward, again, to avert layoffs. And that's it.
Any questions on FY20? Okay, moving to number 2, the FY21 budget update. First and foremost, again, as we all know, we don't know what the budget's going to be. We're hoping that the state does their best to come through and use their stabilization account, which is around, I think, close to $4 billion, to help kind of offset the loss of revenue, which we're hearing could be anywhere between $3 and $6 billion for this shutdown. We're also hoping for stimulus money to come through from, and Kim Gibson's with us, and she did get some information from the MTA about the first CARES Act and how much money is predicted to be in it for Brockton for that first round of $2 trillion that was approved by the federal government. And obviously we're hoping when they get back to work, there'll be another bailout for the states, which would help the cities and towns as well for the FY21 budget. So before I get into more into FY21 and the CARES Act money that could be coming, I worked with Kim today, Dr. Moran and I want to appreciate it because we have a May 15th layoff notice that's due in the contract. It's the collectively bargained. We have to let teachers know, members of the BEA know, if we are going to lay them off by May 15th. And in previous years, that date has stuck around because we were one of the only few districts laying off. So people could go and it was the idea that May 15th, they could actually go find jobs in other places. This year is a little bit different, where everything being up in the air, and where right now there's really no other place to find many jobs available, even in education. So Kim and her team, I really appreciate it, has agreed to extend that date to June 12th of 2020, which will give us time, and the mayor time, and the committee time to hopefully get some numbers from the state. It also will help Aldo get a better handle on how much money we'll be saving in 2020 and moving forward. So, you know, this is much appreciated, and this is a big move by Kim and the BEA leadership. So I really want to thank her, and you know, she's on the call with us. So Kim, thank you for moving this date. I know it's been a date that's been sacred for a long time, and we understand why, because it was very important for people to get a jump on positions in as many years as we've laid off. But moving this date is really big for the district, and it really will, I believe, will help us avert sending out, you know, 200-300 pink slips if it was due on May 15th, because we don't know what the budget is. So this is a big move, and I want to thank the BEA and Kim for this. So Kim is with us, and anybody else wants to ask any questions, feel free.
Kim, I just a comment. I just wanted to thank the BEA for their flexibility on this. Obviously, we, you know, it was a little troubling. We were going to go from hiring 96 people to potentially having to go back to letting people go again. And so I really appreciate the union's flexibility on that. Hopefully, you know, we'll be in a better position to know what decisions we need to make by the time the June date comes. But again, I think, you know, we all really appreciate your flexibility and helping us out there.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I also wanted to just thank Kim and the BEA and all the unions. This is all hands on deck. We have to work together in a collaborative effort. This speaks volumes. This is actually really helpful as we move forward. I have a meeting this week with Aldo and the superintendent, along with Troy Clarkson. We're just trying to figure stuff out right now, and it's changing day by day. But again, I just want to thank, as mayor, I want to thank the BEA. It's really very helpful. So I just wanted to share that tonight publicly. Thank you.
Any other comment? All right.
And it's just, again, and our goal is, again, I'm not hopeful we'll be able to hire any of the 93 that were approved back in January, but I am holding out every hope that we won't have to lay off any of our members. So, you know, let's keep the hope out for that the state's going to come through and do something for education where we can hold out and have no layoffs. So they basically, that's the goal of this, is to move forward with no layoffs. So let's hope for the best when they release the budget, and hopefully they'll do that, you know, before the June date.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you know, the conversations I've had the last few days were all financially, we should be cautious. And so I think that's what we're doing here. So any other members of the committee want to comment? Mr. Minicello?
Hi, everyone. How are you? The BEA in times of crisis in the past has always been willing to discuss and step up. So I'm not surprised by this at all. Do we have so thank you, Kim, and your membership. Do we have any numbers regarding retirements for this year?
Dr. Moran's with us. I think there is a couple more recently, but at the time when we did this back, you took a vote actually in early January, even before actually it was right when the budget started coming out. It was 23 at the time, but Dr. Moran can jump in. I don't know if there's any more since that January date.
There were 23, you're right, Mike. There were a handful more that have come in since then. And at this time, I know that you've said that we're holding on filling those positions as well.
Yes. So we could be up, Tom, to anywhere between 25 or 26 at this time. It could be maybe a couple more than that. Again, and we've held on all of replacing any of those. So obviously, you know, for every retirement, obviously not replacing it would save somebody's position. So that's why we're holding on all of those as well.
Has the state given you any indication in terms of when there'll be some discussion on the issuance of a cherry sheet or numbers?
Unless Aldo has heard from in his business associates, the last call that we had with Jeff Riley, which was last Thursday, he had no information for us from the Department of Ed. So Aldo might have had a call after that, but I know Kim is with us. She's going to give us an update on what she's heard from the MTA as far as the CARES Act. I don't think she's heard anything about Chapter 70, but Aldo, has anything come out from the Business Association?
Nothing. They're still going back and forth as to whether or not there'll be 1/12 budgets or whether they'll, be a new number soon. I even spoke with Troy Clarkson today, and same thing. He hasn't heard a single word. No one's saying what direction they're going.
And about how much have we not expended with regard to our busing budget for this year, Alba? What would you say the number roughly is?
It's roughly, we spend roughly $1 million a month. So if you're looking at 3 months, you're looking at $3 million. If we end up giving a little bit of that, in settling out, because they do have insurance policies they buy, they cover them for the year, and some other expenses like that. So if you give them 1/3 of it, we would be saving the other 2.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, any other comment on the 20, we're on 2020 still, correct? Yes. Any other comment on?
2021.
Or 2021, all right, thank you. Any other comment on the FY 2021 budget?
I'm going to have Kim jump in because she does have some information from the MTA, which came out about the part of the $2 trillion that came to the states. I believe I want to say there's about I thought it was 90 million. Aldo, do you know the exact number that was earmarked for education?
215 million from Massachusetts.
Okay. So, and then we have not received any information from the state. I have not received anything from the DESE, but Kim does have some information from the MTA.
Good evening, everyone. So under the CARES Act, there's an elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund piece. And Brockton is slated, it looks like, to get approximately $4 million from that on top of our Title I funding that we will receive. There's a low number of $4,035,600 and a high number of $4,353,700. So there's 2 different estimates there, but that's approximately what we should get. And it's also in there as additional funds. New Heights Charter is separate from us, so they have their own allocation in this funding area. Theirs, it looks to be about 136,000. So I was happy to see that that's not being taken from our section. But Mike is right. There's, this is all estimates from MTA, but that's an addition. I made sure before getting on the call that that's an addition to whatever we receive from our Title I Part A funds for FY21.
So Aldo, with that news, is the state, because it's coming through Title I, they cannot use that as part of our Chapter 70 to kind of shortchange us $4 million on Chapter 70.
Well, they can and they can't. What they basically do is that now that they've wiped the governor's budget out, our Chapter 70 allotments changed. They can now lower the threshold. We were going to be at, I think, 229 million for foundation. They could lower it to 225 million when they do the new calculations. So until we hear from the Department of Ed and what they're going to do, it's hard to say.
Yeah, that'd be hard to take.
Well, that's what
That money coming right from the Fed for them to take it out of Chapter 70 would be very disappointing.
That's what they did with the ARA money that we got 10 or 11 years ago. The ARA money, they carved right out of Chapter 70. So you have to wait and see what they do.
But overall, that's encouraging news that
Yes,
we're slated for just over 4 million.
Do we know if there is a 4 million and it doesn't get carved out of Chapter 70, assuming that, would that money, that 4 million, be unrestricted, or are we still waiting to learn about that?
Yeah, for me, I don't have any information, Mark. I'm not sure, like Aldo said, I think it's going to depend on what the state ends up saying about it.
Okay.
And as I get
Thank you.
information, I will share it with Mike and Aldo. as I try to do, typically.
Right. My
Yeah.
my understanding on that is that they're just using it as a conduit to send it. That formula where my guess is probably 2/3 of the districts in the state receive Title I. Whereas the SOA, it was primarily a dozen of us that were going to receive it. So I think they're choosing that conduit because it gets it out to more districts.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. Any other comment from the committee? All right. We want to move on to transportation. I don't know if it's Aldo or the superintendent that'll be handling that.
Yes, so we've been hearing that there was a bill being thrown around on Beacon Hill that would come out that we would be paying transportation vendors. We don't really have any details on that. And we haven't seen anything yet. And as you know, we have taken the stance not to make any payments. There's been some districts, and I don't know why, who have made payments up to 70 to 80% of the contract value have been making those payments, and some of them have been paying 100%. And again, without a ruling from the state or the AG, thanks to the mayor, Aldo, and Troy, there's been no payments made, and there will be no payments made until we get some kind of direction from the state. And again, it's important that this money is saved so we can save what we have and see what go forward. And we do understand that there are companies that are, basically that have policies, unemployment policies, and they have other things, overhead, and we want these companies to stay in business. But we also have to take into consideration that their drivers are collecting unemployment. So, you wonder that some of these districts that have paid 70 to 80%, where is that money going? Because 80% isn't an overhead for, mostly like us, the cost of doing, 80% of your budget is usually personnel. And I'm pretty sure that's pretty close for transportation vendors as well. So to pay that much and also with employees getting unemployment, I don't think that was a smart move by, from districts doing that before there was some kind of ruling from the state.
Mr. Minicello.
Yeah, I would double down on that. I totally agree with the decision to hold back the funding. As all of us know, we're involved with this bus company over the years. In times when the district was short on funds in terms of having to cut back the number of buses, never did First Student say to us, well, we'll lower the price to help you out. It was always, okay, just tell us the amount of buses you can afford, and that's basically it. Business as usual, see you later. Well, as far as I'm concerned, they're not spending the money or expenses, on gas, on maintenance, on tune-ups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I say my position won't be on this budget. I will only vote for what we legally are required to do. I will not vote to give them a penny more.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Mr. Minicello's sentiments. I mean, ongoing, personally, the ongoing overhead, because we need them to still be in business for next year, but the ongoing overhead, is certainly something we can talk about. But as far as, unless we're ordered by the state to do more than that, I don't see why we should do that. I think to the superintendent's point, if 80% of their cost is the people, and they don't have that cost right now, there's no reason for us to pay for that. Any other comments on this?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if we were forced to pay for the cost of their people, we're basically insulating them from having to pay and put the unemployment costs away that every legal business in this Commonwealth has to. So basically, we'd be a double indemnity insurer, and if that's the way the business operates, and I think we all should open a bus company tomorrow, because it's a no fail business, so
right.
There's no way I would pay to double dip, in addition to, basically paying for something that we have not, utilized the services of, especially going into next year with a budget that is right now up in the air and totally a mystery to us all. So I again stand by. We go the most conservative route and only do what we were legally required to in order to protect the funding for our district and to expend it for the benefit of our students going forward if we can legally do so. Yeah.
All right. Any further comment? All right, so we can move forward to special education out-of-district placement school tuition payments.
So I'll have Aldo jump in. Yeah. Aldo, can you explain, obviously if these out-of-district schools are providing remote learning, what are we obligated to pay for tuition?
Right, so we've had 2 or 3 conference calls on this statewide. And the way it was simply put out there was the same way we have students that go to Southeast Regional, the same way we have students that go to the charter school, our funds follow them. There should be no difference with the collaboratives and some of the special ed schools. Those that are that are private, what the Department of Ed is recommending is that we interview our students and their parents and find out if they are receiving services. If they're receiving full services, pay them. If they're receiving reduced services, then you would negotiate a reduced bill. So Laurie Mason has been working on this with her team. They've been contacting every student, make sure they are receiving services. And so far, she says, pretty much most of them are doing what they should be doing for our kids. So she and I are going to meet again next week and go over what we have outstanding for invoices. But from the guidance of the Department of Ed saying that, they are our students and the dollars follow them as they do with Southeastern and others, we should do the same. So we'll go basically bill by bill and see what we can do.
Mr. Minicello.
Again, it's the same exact situation. We simply pay for what we utilize. If they're providing services, if they're providing 100% of services, we pay 100% of the bill. 75%, 75, whatever we can justify, whatever they are spending in providing for our students, we pay it. But if they're not paying, if they're not at 100%, then like Mr. Petronio said, have the special ed department justify and certify what they feel through the assistance of the parents, what is being spent or what is being expended on the students, and we basically adjust the payment accordingly. Makes sense.
I agree. 100%. All right, any other comment on that topic? All right, seeing none, we can move to the final agenda item for this finance meeting. That is new business. Is there any new business to come before the committee? Okay.
I got a call today about someone asking about summer programs and the use of the facilities. So just to let you know, I basically told the person that, as of right now, of course, the ball is up in the air with regard to everything. So, there's no decisions certainly about our summer programs, but just to share that with everyone. I think it was someone from the Y was inquiring about the ability to use the facilities. So that's sort of being bandied about out there, but obviously we're in no position now to predict anything, but I just figured I'd share that with you guys.
Yeah, Mr. Rodriguez and I had a similar conversation. I know he had been approached by a group with the same question, so maybe it's a good time to talk about that. I mean, there's not much to say except assuming we're able to even have the facility available, we don't even know what the numbers of, the numbers for gatherings will be allowed. So even if we said, yeah, we're going to be willing to do that, who knows if they could even have a gathering at that point. We just, like you said, we don't really know. So if people are getting those questions, I think we just need to tell them it's a wait and see, like everything else, unfortunately, right now, till we get more guidance from the governor as we get closer to those times. Anything else for new business or any other comment on that topic? Okay. All right, if there's no other new business, we do have to call the roll to take a roll call vote to end the meeting. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Vice Chair, myself is a yes. Miss Asak,
Yes.
Miss Mendez, Mr. Minicello,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan. There you go.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And Superintendent Thomas.
Yes.
All right. So we are adjourned from finance, and I think they had wanted us to just take a quick 5 minutes. Right, cable access needed us to just have a break in between the two meetings. So we'll do 5-minute recess, come back for policy. All right.